I'm Jess from jesscrafts.com, and I had a presentation at the summit about using 12 by 12 paper without making scraps because I'm obsessed with pattern paper and I want to help everyone use those stacks and stacks of paper that are in your collection. So if you joined my class already, you probably downloaded your freebie. It has a sketch and tells you how to cut the paper. Oh, there we go. Um, and I also had, and so here are the cards I made to kind of remind you guys of what I was doing in the summit. Then I had the card inserts in the Ultimate Card Making Bundle. So hopefully those of you who bought your ticket have picked up the bundle and you're going to get these card inserts that you can use to put little like activities inside your cards. Okay, so I see ticket questions are up. I've never tried a guillotine paper trimmer. What are the advantages compared to the Fiskar type trimmers? Usually that you can cut more sheets. So usually a Fiskar's trimmer cannot handle as many pieces of paper at one time. And the biggest reason that I like it is I don't have to change the blades because when I had the Fiskars trimmers or any trimmers with like a single blade in the past, they would get kind of dull and fuzzy. And I didn't like that. I like a really clean edge. And so my guillotine trimmer stays sharp. You can damage your guillotine trimmer, which happened to me. So I did have to switch it out. And that was kind of a bummer because it's a lot of plastic when you have to get a new one. But, if you're cutting paper, you should be good. Of course, you have to be careful with it. Make sure you lock it, use it safely, just like with any sharp object. What is my favorite paper trimmer or guillotine to use? So I use a swing line guillotine trimmer and I use it because it's fast for me at this point. Um, it's a little bit limited in some ways. So something that people notice about the guillotine trimmer is it can't cut really tiny pieces from other small pieces. So like say I had a 1 inch piece of paper and I wanted to cut half an inch off it, guillotines are not so good for that. Or at least mine, because I can't really like hold on to the paper and cut. So that in that instance, that would be like maybe an advantage of a slide trimmer. Also, a slide trimmer allows you to be precise. Sorry, I'm talking with my hands. I'm trying not to. Um, a slide trimmer allows you to like go, maybe just 3 inches down the paper and then stop. But yeah, swing line guillotine trimmer is my favorite. What do I use to refill my ATG gun? Where to buy it? So, um, I've used the Scotch tape runner for years. I buy my refills at Tape Jungle. And if you go to my YouTube channel, every video description actually has a coupon code for Tape Jungle. So you can buy your refills. If you buy a lot of them, it becomes really economical. So I kind of buy like a year's worth of tape at a time, which is a lot of tape for me because I make a lot of cards, but yeah, so Tape Jungle is where I've gotten them. Really brings the price down to buy a lot of rolls, and you can get that coupon code. Unfortunately, I just don't know it off the top of my head. Favorite designer paper to use on my cards. Hi, Arlene. So I I'm assuming this is a question about like the favorite manufacturer. But I guess I can answer. I was also thinking maybe you're asking like what size is my favorite. My favorite manufacturer. It's a really tough one. I don't feel like I'm loyal to any one manufacturer. I mean, Doodlebug is super cute. That's kind of like what really drew me in to card making and pattern paper was the little Doodlebug pads. Um, but I haven't used them as much recently. I found I like Echo Park, Simple Stories. They have some great lines. I'm drawn to theirs often. But then I use a ton of scrapbook.com. They just are always offering great deals and values. So I use their 6x8 pattern paper a lot. I have a great answer to that. And then I could see the other side of that question being like, what is my favorite size of pattern paper? And in that case, I personally prefer 6x6, but yet somehow I've been acquiring a lot of 6x8. Like more, I guess it's become more popular recently. And then some people aren't offering the 6x6 size. So I like the smaller size pads because the scale of the patterns is smaller. But then I know a lot of us have 12 by 12 paper where we bought in stacks years ago, and we want to use those too. And so that's why I used it in the summit so that you guys could really bust through some stash. Favorite batch making tip from Kim. Hi, Kim. Um, so I guess it's to use a sketch because that's what I do. Like, that's why I started making the sketches because I didn't like, I'm like, if I want to make a bunch of cards, coming up with the idea can sometimes be the hardest part of the process. But in terms of making cards faster, I tend to just like try to group things up. And so like that way I'm making all my card bases at one time, or I'm coloring if I want to color an image, then I'm going to do that all at the same time. So batching, and then I like to keep everything organized. So I have these like plastic folders that I put all of the supplies in, so it holds my templates because it's like the size of a piece of paper, and then I can hold all my parts and pieces. So that way I'm never losing anything. But I know some people like to use trays. I just like this because it seals so then I could like throw it in a bag and take it on the go even. How did I come up with my jokes or activities for inside the cards? Um the jokes I just that are so at jesscrafts.com, you can get free jokes to download and you can put them inside your cards because as many of you who follow me for a while might know, I like to donate most of my cards. So that's what I do with a lot of them. I make cards that are well suited for organizations that serve children or seniors. And then I put the jokes inside the cards so there's something for them to read. And the jokes I've gathered from across the internet, and I have a little disclaimer about that on the site. And then for the activities, I just kind of thought of like the activities that you find in kids' coloring books. So a lot of times they have word searches and word scrambles and tic tac toe. And I was like, so whatever would be in a coloring book, I thought would also be fun for inside of a card in terms of getting kids to be like involved. So as I showed you before, if you're part of the Ultimate Card Making Bundle, you got these downloads. You got them for all 4 seasons and 4 major holidays: Valentine's Day, Easter, Christmas, and Halloween. Because I thought those would be like the holidays would be fun to have something for the kiddos to do when they received your card, or even some of them are a little more well suited for adults. You can like play the dots game, or there's mazes and stuff inside of them. So, yeah, that's just from activities kids like to do. How long have I been paper crafting? Hi, Jane. I have been crafting since I was gonna make myself. I've been crafting since I was a teenager. So I started scrapbooking after we went to Italy, and I wanted to scrapbook the trip. And then I decided to get into card making a couple years later. Kind of a pretty traditional story where I start scrapbooking and then move on to card making and I scrapbooked for a long time, but I just find that I like the smaller palette or canvas of a card. And also, it gets to the point where if you're a scrapbooker where you kind of start running out of room to put all the scrapbooks. So it's over 15 years. What's my process for coming up with a sketch? Hi, Christina. My process is, I mean, sometimes I just like I'm looking around at magazines because, sometimes the way that a graphic designer puts together an advertisement can give you ideas for like visual balance or things like that. So, it's that, but sometimes I've gotten to the point where I can kind of start visualizing the shapes in my head because I've spent so many hours doing this at this point that I kind of start like seeing how the paper could be divided into pieces. And then I'm like, okay, well, what if I put this piece, or even I'll open up the program. I'll do the same thing where I'm like, okay, a 12 by 12 paper can be evenly divided into 3 by 3 squares. So what if I take a 3 by 3 square and then, okay, what smaller shape could I cut a 3 by 3 square into? Because I don't just make sketches, I make them for no scrap. So I have to use every single bit of the paper as opposed to just being like, "Oh yeah, a circle would look cute here," or, I have to also fit it all back in like a puzzle. So yeah, graphic design stuff. Do I have videos for 5 by 7 paper smash? Hi, Helen. Yes, I do. Well, for 5 by 7 cards, not 5 by 7 paper, but I think you mean 5 by 7 cards. Yeah. So yes, if you go to my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/ I think you have to say at Jess Crafts, but if you just also search Jess Crafts on YouTube, I should come up. And there are paper busting templates for 5 by 7 cards, specifically 6 by 6 paper on 5 by 7 cards and 12 by 12 paper on 5 by 7 cards. I don't know if I've done other sizes yet, but I know I've done both of those. And advice for making 5 by 7 cards, it is a bigger palette, so I like that about it. I can use more pattern paper. How do I categorize/organize my stamps? Hi, Margaret. So I actually sort my stamps by manufacturer. And I was part of the Paper Crafters Get Organized Summit. And in that, I kind of went through all of them. So if you had that pass or you get a chance to check that out. But I organize them by manufacturer because that's just how my brain works. Like when I think, I'm like, oh, I want a cute pig. I know Lawn Fawn made a cute pig. I'll go into my Lawn Fawn stamps. And they are organized in the Alex drawers behind me. So I don't put them in stamp pockets because stamp pockets do not fit in the Alex drawers. But I have these like, I think they're like 5 by 8 clear bags, and they do fit sideways in my drawer. So I can easily flip through all of my stamps and find what I need. My dies, though, are actually behind me under those plants, and I'm, like, afraid to try to point to it because I won't. Yeah, so under that plant, that on top of that Alex cart, they're not called Alex carts. I don't know, on top of that cart is, all of my dies, and they are organized more by, like, category. Hi, Jeanette, I think? Or anyway, sorry. Hello. Do you use liquid adhesive? And if so, do you have a favorite? I do not use liquid adhesive very often, but I do, especially for small things or like gluing together die cuts. And my favorite would be the Verily Art glue. I've used it for a couple of years now. I like that you can get a really large bottle to refill it. I've never had any problems with it. Occasionally it'll like clog up if I've not put it away properly. But if you put it away properly and make sure that it's closed, it doesn't give me any problems. It sticks well. I also have a video on my channel where I compare the Barely Art glue to the scrapbook.com glue, and they're both great options. But if you wanted to get a little bit more of a breakdown of how the glues work, I literally watched glue dry for that video. So that might be helpful. How long does it take me to develop a sketch? Hi, Deborah. Um, it all depends. I mean, to come up with the idea can be really, really fast sometimes. So in the order of like, I start perusing a magazine or something like that. And then I'm like, oh, I have an idea and I can kind of quickly think of all the measurements and have that written down in like 5 minutes. But then I have to go into my drawing program and actually draw it all out and make sure that it actually makes sense the way it did in my head. And I've gotten at this point, I'm pretty good. If I think it will work, it usually does when I get to the drawing program. But in terms of actually like making the drawing for the sketch, making the drawing for the template itself. So like I'll show you how to cut the paper and make that's a template, and then I'll show you the sketch. So to develop both of those in the program, it's less than an hour. But it all kind of depends on how well it's working. Hi, Rosie. What is your favorite size of card and what did you do before card making? Um, my favorite size of card is probably A2, just because I can cut it from an 8.5 by 11 paper without scraps. And we all know that I'm extremely prejudiced against scraps and I try not to be wasteful. So I make A2 cards from that. And also just like it's just so common, like so many supplies are made for it. But I do enjoy sometimes working on like a bigger card, like a 5 by 7 or a slimline, because then I have more options. And then what did I do before card making? I was an elementary school teacher, if you're asking what my profession was. But I didn't do that before card making because I was card making since I was a teenager. So nothing. I don't know. I noticed your tape runner is decorated. Is it patterned paper? If so, do you have a template for cutting it to fit? I'd love to make some seasonal ones with my own pattern paper. Yes, it is decorated with pattern paper. There is a template. So at jesscrafts.com, I think it's like if you go under, like at the top, it will say templates and sketches, and there's like a category all the way at the bottom for other printables. And you can print off a like drawing guideline, and then you could cut it out and trace it onto your own pattern paper and put it in your ATG. And there's also a video where I like walk through how to do that. How do you store Hi, Millie. How do you store your finished cards before donating? Um, in a giant box. I don't have a good system. It's kind of, it used to be over by my desk, but then I needed more space. So I just have like one of those storage cubes that you can get from like, you get them at Target and Walmart and IKEA and all those places. So just one of those big, like 10 by 10, 12 by 12 storage cubes. And then I also will sometimes store, like once I've put jokes and signed them, but I'm not ready, like if the whole box isn't filled, then I will put them in the UPS flat rate boxes and or USPS flat rate boxes. And then they'll be like sitting there. And then when the box is full, I'll ship it out. But that box also fits inside of that larger storage cube. So sorry. Is the setup behind you where you film your videos? Yes. So I can like move out of the way a little bit and you can see my camera there on a tripod. I don't know what brand it is, so sorry for that. But it's hooked up to that like little storage cube thing. And I turn it on. And then those are my studio lights up top. And there's that other thing. This is a Canva lamp. I don't actually use the lamp feature, but it can hold a cell phone, and I'll use that for, like, my Instagram videos, and then, like, on that wooden desk thing, which is a, like, countertop that you can purchase at Lowe's or Home Depot, like a big box store. So, like, it's just a piece of wood countertop, wood block, and then I have like, a big mat on top of it so that I don't ruin the work surface because it would stain easily. I don't know if that answers some of your questions. Can you make 5x7 cards with no scraps? Absolutely. There are several templates on jesscrafts.com. So when you go to jesscrafts.com, at the top it says sketches and templates. If you click that or the drop down menu comes down, they are organized by card size and paper size. So it will, you'll go to the menu and it will say 5x7 cards. You click that and you can start downloading some templates that will make 5x7 cards with no scraps. My templates are when you go to jesscrafts.com, they are available individually. And so you have to download them one at a time. If you preferred, you could go to my Etsy store and buy like a pack of them where you can download between 10 and 50 templates at a time. So I believe it's etsy.com/jesscraftsshop. But that's also on my website. And you would be able to just buy like a big pack of templates for whatever size or paper you want it. And they're all sorted both ways so that you can find what you want. Where in your craft room would you still like to get better organization in? My paper pads, which is crazy because like I am all about using up pattern paper, yet somehow I have an absolutely massive amount of it still because I don't stop buying pattern paper. So I like literally have a pile of paper pads on the floor in front of where they should be stored because I'm out of room. And I actually have a very small craft room and I can't fit any more furniture in here. So, and I know like I should just, in theory, like use up some of my pattern paper because like, I have like 100 plus templates for doing that. But again, I would have to stop buying pattern paper. And we all know I'm not going to do that. Hi, Patty. Jess, you talked about how you store your stamps and your dies, but what about die and stamp sets or if you have tiny dies and tiny stamps? Okay. Um, if I have coordinating dies, which I actually don't often buy because I do fussy cut things out pretty often, and I have a scan and cut. which will help me cut out stamps, but I honestly don't use it all that much. I used to use it a lot, but I don't use it as much anymore. So anyway, if I do have coordinating dies, they go in the back of the stamp set. So I keep them in zip top bags, and I have to like sit on my hands so that I don't keep putting my hands in the video. So I have zip top bags, and then I can take like a big sheet of magnet. You can get these magnetic vent covers at some hardware stores, and so you can cut off strips of magnets, and then I'll put all the coordinating dies on like a block of magnet, and I'll put it behind the stamp set, and then they get stored with my stamps. And then if I have tiny stamps or dies, my tiny stamps get stored in with my regular stamps. They just, because of the way that I organize them, the small stamps can fit right in there. I can still flip through them and all that. So that's not a problem. And then tiny dies, I honestly just put them in with the other dies. Occasionally I'll combine a few die sets. So like if I have for instance, like with Lawn Fawn, I had like a few smaller die sets together and like specifically words. And so I just kind of put them all in one like bag together on one magnet sheet. What are your tips for fussy cutting? I've tried it and I'm not very good at it. I totally understand. Practice, unfortunately, is part of the answer. But I think the biggest thing is a really good scissor. And so I did a whole video just on scissors and I like bought an excessive amount of scissors. Yeah, on that side behind me. Okay. In that like thing, by the little tree, there's probably like 10 pairs of scissors, and that's not even all of the scissors that I own. Because I'm a big believer and there's like certain scissors for certain purposes. So I tried several scissors for fussy cutting, and I found that the Cutter Bee scissors from EK Success are hands down my personal favorite, but they do have small holes. And so in the video, I also talked about like, well, what if you wanted a bigger scissor? And so Tim Holtz and Tonic, I think they make ones with a larger like holes for your hands. But honestly, it's all about, and then I think they're called the haberdashery scissors from Tim Holtz. And those would be, if you really need like large holes for your hands, I would recommend the Tim Holtz haberdashery ones because they have really sharp blades and they're small. And so you can move around the images. I also would say, remember to move your paper more than your scissor. So as you're going along, you want to shift the paper when you go around a curve rather than stopping your scissor and restarting, because that will create like a little imperfection in it. Careful of serrated blades because they do leave a little bit of extra texture on the side. If your blades aren't sharp enough, if your blades are too thick, that hurts it as well because then you can't get into tiny spaces as much as you would like to. So yeah, my biggest step is to get the EK Success Cutter Bees. Between the nonstick and regular version, I think I own 5 or 6 Cutter Bees. It's a problem. Do I have a video about my scan and cut? Yes. So it's an older scan and cut. The video might not be relevant if you're just about to purchase a scan and cut. I have not updated my scan and cut in probably 10 years. I don't know how old mine is, but quite old. But there is a video on my channel where I explain how to cut stamped images with the scan and cut. And I think I also cut words. I don't have a ton of videos on it, but like the very, very basics. There are a lot of great videos. Brother, who makes the scan and cut, also has videos about how to use the scan and cut. With any machine like that, I would say it's important to make sure you're changing your blade regularly so that it stays sharp and continues to give you good cuts. What do you do when you've lost your mojo? Um, eh, the risk of sounding self-promoting, I just grab one of my sketches. Um, because I have there's a where my dies are behind me is one of my binders of sketches, and then there's like 2 more binders of sketches over here, and so if I don't know what to do, I literally just am like, "Okay, well, which pattern paper in my collection do I want to work with? Okay, that's a 6x6 pattern paper. Okay, I'm going to go to my binder that has all my 6x6 paper busting templates in it and flip through till one looks good. And then now I can just make a card. In terms of if I lost my mojo for like coming up with new ideas for card sketches or something like that, I mean, I think to some extent I just kind of like give myself a break and I'm just like, okay, well, I can go do so I have some cross stitches, like, hanging on the, board behind me, so, like, sometimes I'll just, like I like to have, like, a backup craft, so if I'm just not in the mood to do card making, I'll maybe just do some cross stitching where there's a pattern, and I don't have to think about it, and someone else just tells me what to do. Hi, Jennifer. Do you mainly buy 12 by 12 paper pads? Do you order online or go to big craft stores? I do not buy 12 by 12 paper very often. It is not my personal choice. I don't prefer 12 by 12 paper because usually the patterns are quite large and they're designed more with scrapbookers in mind. So they also like the sentiments that are on them sometimes are more meant for scrapbookers. But if I do want to purchase some 12 by 12 paper, I do 90% of my shopping at scrapbook.com. It's just my personal favorite place. They're often offering they have a really, really great selection. They often have free gifts to kind of like offset the cost of shipping. And they have, I don't know, like I find it easy to search, et cetera, et cetera. Like it's just my favorite place. But I also go to big craft stores. So sometimes I will look at Michael's, Joann's. I don't really shop at Hobby Lobby, but it's time to wrap up. Okay. Hi. Yeah, if you have any more questions, I will be over in the Facebook group. I'll go check for more questions. Thank you to everyone for hanging out with me today.